Hello YouTube, my name's Damien and I've helped over 1,000 students pass their IELTS exam, and today I'm going to take you over my super secret steps for matching headings for the reading portion of the test. Now let's get into it. The first super secret step that I've got for you is to start with the shortest paragraph. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. So, we want to start with the shortest paragraph, and I'll explain to you why. If we have a look at this reading, we have lots of different paragraphs that are different lengths. And let's say, for example, we started with A that has all of this information in it. The likelihood of us getting it wrong is much higher than if we were to start with a short paragraph. And for matching headings, it's really important to get the first 2 or 3 answers correct, because if you get them wrong, you're going to get all of matching headings wrong. Let me explain to you why. Let's say, for example, I put the wrong answer for paragraph A. Let's say I put II, for example, and then the answer for paragraph B is also supposed to be II. But because I put the wrong answer for A, I'm now also going to put the wrong answer for B. So maybe I will put VI, for example. But now I've stolen another answer from a different question. So you've probably had this happen when you're practicing, where sometimes with matching headings, you just get them all wrong, or you only get one wrong. Right, sorry. And the reason is, when we get the first answers wrong, we're probably going to get all of them wrong. So we want to start with the shortest paragraphs, as the likelihood of getting it correct when there is less information to understand is much, much higher. So start with the shortest paragraph. This is our first step. Second step. We only want to read the first and last sentence in a paragraph. The reason for this is, a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, the answers are either in the first sentence where they're explaining what the paragraph is about, or at the end, which is usually some sort of conclusive sentence. And we can save a bunch of time by doing this. So let's go do this in real time. So we can start with B, as it's a relatively short paragraph. And let's read the first sentence. So corals are composed of tiny animals known as polyps with tentacles for capturing small marine creatures in the seawater. Okay, so once we've read the first sentence, we want to give it its own title, because this is matching headings, not matching words, right? So you need to say to yourself, this first sentence, what is it about? It looks like it's about with corals and the kind of food they eat. So what corals eat. And then we do the same for the last sentence. So this comfortable symbiotic relationship has led to the growth of coral reefs that cover 0.1% of the planet's ocean bed, while providing homes for more than 25% of marine species, including fish, sponges, and shellfish. Okay, quite a long last sentence, but still. So this brings me on to point number 3. After we've read the first and the last sentence, we want to give them their own title. Let me zoom out a little. It might be a bit tricky if you're on mobile. Okay. So the first sentence is about what corals eat, and then the second sentence is about the animals that live with them. So we can give this the title of corals and the animals that they eat and live with. And once we have our own title, now is the first time that we go and we read the headings, and we just go through a process of elimination. Now, again, just a quick side note, it is okay to take a little bit longer for these first couple of questions, because as you go through, there's going to be fewer options available. And as there are less options available, your likelihood of getting the answer is going to go up. Okay, so this is about animals that they live with. So tried and tested solutions, no, can't be this. Cooperation beneath the waves, maybe, could be this. Working to lessen the problems, no, not at all. Disagreement about the accuracy of a certain phrase, not at all. Two clear educational goals, promoting hope, and trouble ahead. Okay, none of these match perfectly, but the only one that kind of matches is number 2. So we can go ahead and put number 2 for B. Cross out number 2. And carry on and do this process again, where we go to the next shortest paragraph. So either C or F, and we want to do the first sentence and the last sentence, and also put our own title. I think this is a good point for me to mention some of the biggest mistakes that students make when they do this task. I will give you the 4th step later on. It just happens near the end when we have fewer options. Okay, so back to the biggest mistakes. The biggest mistake by far is matching keywords. Now, matching keywords in IELTS reading generally is a fantastic tip. But when we are doing matching headings, we are really matching ideas. And the keywords here are often going to lead you into getting the wrong answer rather than the right answer. So do not do this. This is probably going to be your biggest downfall if you do. All right, I'm sure I can illustrate that later with one of these. So what's shorter, C or F? I think F is slightly shorter. So let's go and do F. Okay, so we have research in these fields is being conducted in laboratories around the world, with the London Zoo Centre linked to this global network. So first sentence is about research, and then the last sentence, saving our coral reefs now is critically important ecological goal. This seems to be joined to this sentence here, but let's see if we can just do it with this. This is a good example of why matching words doesn't work. So we have the word goal here, right? So you might see, oh, I have goal there, so the answer must be V or 5, because here is goals. But if we say saving our coral reefs now is a critically important ecological goal, an ecological goal, educational goal, is this the same thing? No, it's not. So we can disregard this, and then if you were to match the keywords, unfortunately, you'd probably get it wrong. So what is this about? This is about research, that's the first sentence, and then the last sentence, saving our coral reefs is now, so about the future, about saving something. So research and saving for the future. That's my heading. Okay, does tried and tested solutions fit? No, it doesn't. Working to lessen the problems, which problems? Disagreement about accurate, no. Educational goals, we already mentioned, it doesn't make sense. Promoting hope, yeah, kind of fits. A warning of further trouble ahead, maybe as well. But if we think about this logically, is this more about the positive aspect, so hope, or more about the negative aspect, the troubles ahead? And they are using positive language here, like saving, rather than words which are negative. So we can go ahead and pop in VI for, I believe that was paragraph F. And then we can put a line through this. Okay. Now the first two are more than likely going to be correct, making the rest of this much easier. let's go to paragraph C, as it is the next shortest paragraph. By this point, you might start to connect the headings a lot quicker because you've already got some of the titles in your head. So for those of you that do find the answer instantly, great, but I'm still just going to go through the whole process for those of you that don't. So we can just see my thinking and you can compare it to yourself and hopefully learn something from it. So as a result, coral reefs are often described as the rainforests of the sea, though this comparison is dismissed by some naturalists, including David Attenborough, who has a fantastic voice. Okay, so this is about a name for the rainforests and whether people, agree with that name or not. The final sentence is saying that the sight under the sea is mind-blowing. So we've got a name for the rainforest and it is mind-blowing. So that's my title from the first sentence and the last sentence. Let's go have a look at the options. I think very, very clearly it is IV. I don't think it can be anything else. So we'll put this as 4 and this is paragraph C. Cross out IV. Okay, what is the next shortest paragraph? D looks super long. A is pretty long as well, so I guess that leaves us with E. Now we're getting to the more difficult paragraphs, just because there's more information to consume. Yet again, we want to start by reading the first sentence. Scientists are trying to pinpoint hardy types of coral that could survive our overheated oceans. Okay, so they're looking for a coral that is going to survive overheated oceans. So we could paraphrase this as like a climate cause or a climate problem. That would be a big help in restoring blighted reefs. Okay, so we've got another issue here, blighted reefs. So we're talking about a few problems here, overheated oceans and blighted reefs, and how we're going to fix this problem. Let's go have a look. Solutions, no. Lessen the problems, yeah, I think so. Educational goals, no. A warning of trouble ahead, no, I don't think so. Also, another quick little side tip is like when you have trouble ahead, you can maybe see if like future dates stand out to you or language to describe the future stands out. It's always going to help you identify this time tense. This one is going to be I. Which paragraph was it again? E. Okay. I. Okay, now we can get into super step number 4. At this point, we only have 2 paragraphs left, and there are only 3 options left. And when you have 3 options left, it's much easier just to have the options in the back of your mind, as you can just kind of skim through the text to try and figure out what it means. The reason why we have to wait for this to happen at the end is if we had to remember all 7 headings in the back of our mind, it's going to be an impossible task. But when we get down to 2 or 3, we can just remember the headings or remember the options as we're reading. We want to simplify these as well, right? So is the paragraph about solutions? Or is the paragraph about educational goals? Or is it about warning with the future? So let's have a look here. So we just want to skim through this. Okay, serious threat. So okay, we see this time period here, 2050. Let's read it a bit more clearer. Scientists advise that more than 90% of the reefs could be lost by 2050. Okay, fantastic. This is definitely a warning of future trouble ahead. So we can go ahead and pop in the answer here, VII. And lastly, for section A, we need to see if it's more about educational goals or solutions. Okay, let's see here. So, conservationists have put the final touches to a giant artificial reef that they have been assembling at the world. Okay, I'm not really sure this sentence is relevant. So I'm going to go and start reading the next paragraph, because usually each paragraph has its own sort of theme, and I think this is just giving us some information about London Zoo. Coral reefs have the most diverse ecosystems on Earth, and we want to show people how wonderful they are. Show people how wonderful they are. So is this a solution or a goal? Sounds much more like a goal. Personally, if this were my test, I would go ahead and put this answer in, just because you're restrained on time. But just as we're going through the video's practice, we'll see if we can find the other educational goal, or to see if it is a solution. However, we also want to do this. Okay, yeah, so these are goals, right? This is goal language. Show people, want to highlight. We don't really need to care what they actually are trying to do, because we're just trying to get the theme of the passage as opposed to really understanding it in great detail. So with this language here, show people how, and we want to highlight, it's pretty clear that these are goals rather than solutions that have already been tried and tested 100 times. So we can go ahead and put number 5 in there. Okay, so just to give you a quick recap, we want to start with the shortest paragraph. This increases the likelihood that we get the first few answers right, meaning we're probably going to get the last ones right as well. Most of the time, not all of the time, most of the time, you can find the answer in the first or the last sentence. Step number 3, very critical step, underrated step. You need to give the sentences, the first one and the last sentence, its own title. This is super important, because if you don't, you're just going to default to this big mistake here, where you're trying to match the keywords or synonyms of the keywords rather than the actual idea of the passage. And then lastly, when you get down to 2 or 3 options, you can now read the titles and keep the titles in mind. I just want to go over the second big mistake that people do, which is underlining keywords from the options. When I say the options here, I mean like I. So I know this is kind of similar to the first point, but what a lot of students do, I notice, is they go through the headings, they underline all the keywords before they start reading the passage. And I think this is just going to set you up into looking for those keywords rather than understanding the meaning. So that is why I heavily suggest that you don't do these two, and try the next time you have matching headings following this system and tell me how it goes. If you have any questions, just pop them in the comments or in the chat box, and I will be more than happy to answer them. Until next time, goodbye.